Masechta Shavous, Yud Gimel Amud Aleph. We're starting from Yud Beis Amud Beis, 6 lines from the bottom. So now the Gemara is going to deal with the chatoim that are forgiven with the Soya Mishtaleach. Says Gemara Hayasei. It says one of the mitzvahs that one is over, the Soya Mishtaleach forgives. Is one of them is the Asay. In fact, Gemara Hayasei Eichidami. The mitzvah say that the Mishnah says that the Soya Mishtaleach, the soil that they send to the Azazel, the Yom Kippurim is mechap on them. What's the case? If you cannot say that it's talking about a case that the person didn't do tshuva for being over on the Asay. So if that's the case, what if he didn't do tshuva? Zavach Rishayim Teiva, this carbon, the Soya Mishtaleach, which is officially a mechap of Zavach Rishayim, it's a Zavach from Rishayim, at Nishgitankin tshuva. He's bringing a carbon and he's a Rasha. Teyevas is the disgusting by Shabbat. The person who was over on the mitzvah say he didn't do tshuva, and you want the Soya Mishtaleich to forgive for him. You're saying the Soya Mishtaleich. No, but he has to show regret. He has to do regret. It's not cost. The Soya Mishtaleich is the one that's for the whole tzibah. For everybody, yes. So why should it forgive for him if he is not doing tshuva? It should be considered as a rasha bringing a carbon. He doesn't even mean it. It's teiva. It's disgusting before Hashem. Other people, yeah, but not a person who didn't do tshuva. Says Gemara, Eidei of tshuva. And if the case is talking about he did tshuva, call Yom Nami. What do you need the Soya Mishtaleich Yom Kippur? The one that goes Lazazel, so forgive him any ordinary day, he's forgiven the minute he does tshuva. The Tanya we learned in Abraisa of Al Mitzvah say the last line of Al Mitzvah say if somebody is second to the last line, you'd base some of the base of Al Mitzvah say it says that if somebody was over on a Mitzvah say. And he did tshuva. It means that the Eibush is meichlin right away. I told you what they were asking. They were saying a pasuk. It's a pasuk in the Torah. He says no. It's a Fresher Likutei Torah. Get over here. So Amar Rabbi Zayda. Sag you, Amar Rabbi Zayda. Rabbi Zayda had gesagt. Our Mishnah is talking about that somebody who's standing in a rebellious state. He didn't do tshuva for his aveda. Yes, the story of Yom Kippurim should be mechape because Zavach Rishoyim Teyeva. Says in Rabbi, our Mishnah was learned according to the Shita of Rabbi that Yom Kippurim is mechape even on those that don't do tshuva. Where do we see that? The Tanya. Yeah. I'm not. Yeah. Sumishoyim mechape. The Tanya that we learned in the Braisa. Meaning together with the Soya Mishtaleich. Rabbi Yoma, Al Kol Avedas Shabbat Torah Vein Nasa Tshuva and Lo Yasa Tshuva. On all the Avedas in the Torah, whether he did Tshuva or not, Yom HaKippurim Mechapa, Yom HaKippurim Mechapa. Chutz, except for 3 Avedas. Mepedakel, somebody who's a Kaifa Beika. So then, Megala Purim Torah we had last time that Menashe the king he was giving drushes on the Torah. No, Gelacht. It doesn't even make sense what the Torah is. I know us give drushes. I learned the Torah. No, I'm lacht up in the ganze Torah. Yeah, Talmud Chacham. Yeah. Umei bris babasa, and he's mefatel the bris milah. He doesn't do bris milah. And these 3 avedas, shehi masa tshuva yom kippurim mechapa. Only if he does tshuva, only by these 3. Ve'im laven yom kippurim mechapa, only by these 3 avedas. But by all other avedas, even if he didn't do tshuva, it's mechapa. What? What does he have to do? Go have a bris? He has to have a bris, and he's mevatel it. There's another way of being mevatel it. If it says somebody who pulls up the skin up to the top, he's made for bris shel Avram also. That's in the Rambam that brings down. Thank you. My time of the Rabbi. What's the reasoning of Rabbi? From where does he learn out that Yom Kippurim could be mechape even on somebody who didn't do tshuva? The Tanya and the Gemara, because we learned in the Braisa and the Torah it says Kidvar Hashem Baza. I'm reading the pasuk. I'll read the whole pasuk. It has mitzvah heifa yikados nikados adav shahiyabina. But I'm going to explain each word. Kidvar Hashem Baza. He disgraced the words of Hashem. What is that going on? He takes the words of Hashem and amach the ganze latzonos from them. He's disgracing the words of Hashem. What does it mean, Devar Hashem? The Dvar Hashem, what was the only Dvar Hashem from the Aseret Adibis? Anochi Hashem Alekecha, Alekim HaChayrim. So that, he's played a koil. He throws it off. I meant played a koil. He says, I don't care about Anochi Hashem Alekecha. And he's also being mavaz the words of Hashem. He's disgracing the words of Hashem. Now, ves mitzvah sehefa. What does that mean? So this is somebody who's mavad the bris. It says bris basa. It says it's a mitzvah yechidus. It brings down it's a single mitzvah. It says mitzvah. What was the word in the pasuk? Ki dvar Hashem baza es mitzvah. Mitzvah soy hefa brisi. Mitzvah b'lashon yachid. What does it mean b'lashon yachid? There are many mitzvahs in the Torah. So he's referring to Avraham Avinu was only Nitztava one mitzvah. That's why he says Lashon Yachid. And since that's how we know it's referring to Mefer Bris Shel Avraham. That's how we know he's talking about being Mevatel the mitzvah of Avraham. He Kodesh Tikaris, the double Lashon. He Kodesh is Lefnei Yom HaKippurim. And Tikaris is Lacha Yom HaKippurim. You can take the Dvar Malchus, Rabbi Goffman. He Kodesh is before Yom Kippur, and Tikaris is after Yom Kippur. To teach us, even somebody who's over and on Yom Kippur, right? So it's not going to be niskaper from the Einish of Kodesh. Okay, it says Avena Ba. As long as he has the sin and these three Avedas, meaning he didn't do tshuva, so I would have thought, even if he did tshuva, it's not going to forgive. Talmud Lemer comes the pasuk and says Avena Ba. Only if the sin is still in him. I didn't say that he's not going to be forgiven even after Yom Kippur, only in a time Shavina Ba. That's when I said that he's not going to be forgiven on these three Avinas. But if he did Shuvah and the Avinas Nishdarten, then it does forgive. But according to Rabbanim who argue on Rebbe, and they hold even on other Avinas, is also not forgiven without tshuva. So how do they learn? He kodesh tikares. He says he kodesh. He says it's not referring to Yom Kippur. He kodesh tikares. We learned according to Rabbi. He kodesh tikares. It goes before Yom Kippur. Lifnei Yom Kippurim and tikares lacha Yom Kippurim. That even if Yom Kippur passes. And he had these three Avedas and he didn't do tshuva, it's not going to be forgiven. So he's connecting it with Yom Kippur, these three Avedas. Because it says he kodesh to kodesh, but to these three Avedas. He says no, Rabbanan say on all other mitzvahs also. If he didn't do tshuva, he's not going to be forgiven. It connects the dafke with these three Avedas, he kodesh to kodesh. He says no, he kodesh to kodesh has nothing to do with Yom Kippur. He kodesh is by Mazah. He will be cut off from this world. That his neshama la'achamisa won't have a chayk leilam haba. That even the misa won't be mechaper if he didn't do tshuva. Avena ba is mashma that she'imas a tshuva and umeis the misa marakes. If he did tshuva and he got rid of the avena and then he dies, then the misa will cleanse the Aveda, and he'll get, and he'll get Olam Haba. That's how he learns. Nothing to do with Yom Kippur, so it's not connected with those three Avedas. That's connected with all every sin. That's what the Rabbanan say. Could you establish this part of the mission like the Shita of Rebbe, that you're learning that the Reisha is whether he does tshuva or not. That's how he's learning. That's Rabbi. Well, the Sefer Rabbi Yehudi, but the Sefer, Beferish is Rabbi Yehuda. We'll soon talk about it. So if the Sefer is Rabbi Yehuda, Reish is not Rabbi Yehudi. So we should say the Reish is also Rabbi Yehuda, not because it's one Mishnah. Where do we see that the Sefer follows Rabbi Yehuda? The Ketani Sefer, we learned in the Hamshach of this Mishnah, Echad Yisol, Echad Kohanim, Echad Koyim Ashua, Sai Yisol or Koyin. Or the Kohen Gadol are forgiven with the Sorah Mishtaliyah. Yes, the Kohen Gadol. He was anointed as the Kohen Gadol. So he's miskap with the Shemen HaMishcha. He's miskaper from all the other Avedas except for Tumas Mikdash V'Kadashim. You remember Tumas Mikdash V'Kadashim means that he was tamei and he went into the Beis Hamikdash, or he was tamei and he ate kachim. Those for those avedas, the kahanim are not forgiven with the sar mishtaleach. They need the par. That's for par koye. And for the Yisraelim, the sar mishtaleach will forgive for the tamei mikdash ukadasha. When you get to the other avedas, other than tamei mikdash ukadasha, everyone is forgiven with all the avedas with the sar mishtaleach. Say koyin, say the kaimashur, say the Yisraelim. Man Islay Haisvar. Who from the Tanaim hold that even the kaporas avenes of the Kahanim are other avenes, not Tumas Mikdash Mikdashim, is forgiven with the Sar Mishtaleach. Rabbi Yehuda follows Rabbi Yehuda because others argue. Is Meklal if the safe is going according to the Shita Rabbi Yehuda, Meklal the Reish Rabbi Yehuda is that the Reish also follows Rabbi Yehuda, that Rabbi Yehuda will say that only with Shuvah will forgive. Rabbi Yosef says no. Rabbi, the Mishnah is Rabbi. The Sefer goes according to Rabbi Yehuda. He says v'sova look at Rabbi Yehuda. He says it follows Rabbi, and Rabbi learns like his teacher Rabbi Yehuda.
Okay, what did he say?
That Rabbi Yehuda said that echot the koyanim and the koyim mashuach with the Yisraelim are forgiven with the sar mishtalech, everyone equally by other avedas. Sagt die Gemara, Amalei Abai said back to Rabbi Yosef, if the Reish of the Mishnah, you're saying the Sar Mishtaleach forgives even without tshuva, and the Seif of the Mishnah that says the Sar Mishtaleach forgives for all other Avedas, for everybody. Dafka Kamamar, did he say Dafka, that Rabbi Sabalak Rabbi Yehuda, that Rabbi only in the Sefer holds like Rabbi Yehuda. But Rabbi Yehuda loy savik Rabbi, but Rabbi Yehuda won't hold like Rabbi in the Reisha, that it's mechaper even on sins without tshuva. Or perhaps with the Rabbi savik like Rabbi Yehuda, maybe from this that Rabbi holds in the Sefer like Rabbi Yehuda. Af Rabbi Yehuda savik like Rabbi, and maybe Rabbi Yehuda will hold like Rabbi that the Sar Mishtaleach forgives even for Avedis B'lei Tshuva. So why does it say Savalak Rabbi Yehuda? Why does it say Rabbi holds like Rabbi Yehuda? Miyu urcha de milse ketani lemeima de Talmud Savalak Rabbi, because it's more of the derech to say that the Talmud holds like his teacher, not that the teacher holds like the Rebbe. Amalei Rabbi Yosef says dafka kamet. It means dafka, meaning that the Rebbe holds like Rabbi Yehuda in the Sefer, but Rabbi Yehuda won't hold like Rabbi in the Reisha. Rabbi said like Rabbi Yehuda that the Sar Mishtaleach forgives also on the Kahani by other Avedes. But Rabbi Yehuda loy savik Rabbi, but Rabbi Yehuda won't hold like Rabbi that the Sar Mishtaleach forgives on Avedes below tshuva. It has to do tshuva according to Rabbi Yehuda. He doesn't hold like Rabbi that even below tshuva. Where do we see that? The Tanya that we learned in the Braisa. Yoch Yom HaKippurim mechapa al Hashavim. I would have thought Yom HaKippurim could be mechapa say on the Shavim, ve'ein al v'shein Shavim, and even on those that don't do tshuva. Says the Gemara v'dinhu, and this is how we concluded. Hoy v'chatas v'ashem mechapim v'Yom HaKippurim mechaper. Since the chatas and the ashem forgive on a sin. And the same is with Yom HaKippurim, forgives on the sin. Just like Chatas V'Hashem will only forgive on those that do tshuva. Where do we see that? You look in the pasuk by the Seder of Korban Chatos. It says V'Hisvada Davzokin Vidui. He has to say Vidui and show that he has charat. He enumerates the sins. Now he wants to do tshuva, and then he brings a chatos. And the same thing by Asham. It says there by Asham, V'hisvadas chatos masha asu, and that pasuk is referring to Asham. So you see, they have to do tshuva before they bring the carbon. So I'll say so too. Yom HaKippurim won't forgive only on those that do tshuva on the aveda. How could you compare? By Chatas and Asham, it's not mechapa on somebody who does amazit. Only on somebody who doesn't shegeg. It doesn't forgive on when you bring a carbon. It won't forgive on somebody who did something amazit as if he did a b'shegeg. So Rashi is, but we find by Hashem Shivcha Charufa, Hashem Nazir, Hashem Gzelis, even though he did it b'mezid, it does forgive. So Taisus answers, Al Haroiv, most of the time, it doesn't forgive on Amazid. Only 3. That's exception by 3, but Al Haroiv it doesn't. So that's, he says you can't compare. Yom Toima, Yom HaKippurim, Shu Mechap Al Amazid Kashegik. But Yom HaKippurim, we know it forgives on Amazid like a Shegik. Says the Gemara, so is a Hoyul Mechap Al Amazid Kashegik, Yechap Al Hashem Al Shein HaShavim. So I will say, just like you can forgive on Amazid like a Shegik, so to forgive on even on somebody who doesn't do tshuva. Talmud Leima, that's why the pasuk comes and teaches us a miyud. Ach steht ach be'asla chodesh. Ach is a miyud to tell you chilik that the pasuk made the differentiation that Yom Kippurim is mechapa only on those that do tshuva, but it's not going to be mechapa on those that don't do tshuva. This is Rabbi Yehuda. How do we know it's Rabbi Yehuda? Stam Sifra Mani. When you have a Stam Sifra, this is a Stam Braisa. Who's it? Rabbi Yehuda. And he says only on those that do tshuva and those that don't, it's not forgiven. In fact, the Gemara Stam Sifra. Let us ask from one Stam Sifra is almost like a Braisa. If one Braisa on another Braisa, or one Stam Braisa on another Stam Braisa, the Tanya that we learned. Stam Braisa. If it doesn't say a name, we say it's Rabbi Yehuda. The time that we learned in the Braisa, I would have thought that Yom HaKippurim wouldn't forgive Elohim Kain his anaboy, only if he fasted on Yom Kippur or kroi mikra kodesh, and he mentioned in the bracha mikadesh Yisrael v'Yom HaKippurim. Only if he fasted and he said mikadesh and he mentioned mikadesh Yisrael v'Yom HaKippurim, so he was makabel with his bracha to be magdish it for Yom Kippur, but lo yasa by malacha, and he didn't do any malacha on Yom Kippur, then it forgives. But lo yisana by if he didn't fast, but lo yikra yemika kodesh, or even if he fasted but not l'shem to go on a diet, he needed what do you call intermittence over there diet. He didn't want to eat for a couple hours. Yeah, he wants to look good. Yeah, lo yikra yemika kodesh. And he doesn't say it's for Mikra Kodesh. He did work on Yom Kippur. And how do we know that Yom Kippurim will forgive on him? Talmud Leimer comes the pasuk and says Yom Kippurim hu. It's mashma Yom Kippurim ekol makein. It's not even somebody who's made it. He's rebellious. He's being mechalel. Yom Kippur itself. Nevertheless, Yom Kippurim will be mechaper. So you have a stira. Here you said just now Yom Kippur is only mechaper on those that do tshuva, and here you have somebody who does malacha, nishkin mikra kodesh, nishkin garnish. He's mechal Yom Kippur, and we say it is forgiving. Abai said loy kasha. It's not a kasha. Ha Rabbi, Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi says Yom Kippurim is mechaper even on those that don't do tshuva, and the second brayso is Rabbi Yehuda. What do you mean? Who are we listening? Usually it's Allah Rabbi. Rabbi Yehuda was his Rabbi. You're right. I don't know. I'm not just assuming. I don't know. Let me just see. But he says by 26. So he says the answer of Abaya is 2 different Tanoim, but in what Rabbi Yehuda held, because they were both Stam Braises. Stam Braises follow Rabbi Yehuda. So one learned the Braisa like Rabbi, one Tana learned that the Braisa, that Rabbi Yehuda learned like Rabbi, and one Braisa said no. That he also did learn like Rabbi. Yeah, one Braisa, because both are Stam Sifras, so both are Rabbi Yehuda. So the country. No, so the Tana came and said Rabbi Yehuda was saying like the Shita of Rabbi that it forgives even on those that don't do tshuva. Okay? Rabbi. Both Braisas are Rabbi. Umayda Rabbi because the Yoma. And Rabbi is made when it comes to Kodesh of that day. If Yom Kippur do Mechal, on Yom Kippur you can't use the Yom Kippur as a prosecutor and as a defender. Here it's being used as a prosecutor because you're being Mechal of the Yom Tov and you want the Yom Tov of Yom Kippur also to forgive you. So he says that's not going to forgive. He has to do tshuva. if he did the Aveda on Yom Kippur itself. Says the Gemara, the Eloi Tema Hachi.
Before Yom Kippur.
No, we're talking about for Yom Kippur will be Mechaper, even on those that don't do tshuva. But it says in the Braisa, it doesn't. It's only if you do tshuva. It's talking about in Yom Kippur to Mechala give out. So that's different. But it says I'll bring you a right. The Eloi Tema Hachi. If you're not going to say so, you're going to say Yom Kippurim is Mechaper. Even if you do on Yom Kippur, what does it mean? Kodesh the Yom Kippurim Rabbi Leslie. That doesn't exist. A hechitimtza that somebody should be Kodesh, that should be a chiyuv of Kodesh by Yom Kippur, because it's all automatically forgiven by Yom Kippur. Says Gemara, what are you talking about? It's still fine. Says Gemara, Allah Malay, what do you mean you can't find that he'll ever be chayiv Kodesh? Mashkachas la, I can find you a case. You're going the avad beleilia umis, that the person did it aveda by nighttime. On the night of the night going to the day of Yom Kippur, the Yom Kippur by night, the loy asa yamam lechaperilei, and the only it says ki by yoim hazeh yichaper, the yoim that mechaper zayin, but he had gizindig by night. He sinned by night, and he died. He had to manage to live by day. If he would manage to live, but he didn't manage.
So his shul will be
if he did tshuva, he would have been forgiven. If not, he's blocked him into Aveda. By Yom is the Kavashtik. By Yom Hazeh Yichaper. Yeah, but only if it's together with the Etzma of Yom Kippur. By Yom Hazeh. Oh, that's on a regular day, on a mitzvah say. Okay, we'll get into it. It says you got to Kodesh the Yamama the Rebbe Leslie. Kodesh the Yamama by Rebbe. He says. According to Rabbi, you can be mechayvim on Chil Yom Kippur by day. It says. So by day, how do you find? It says Kodesh the Yomamim. How do you find the concept of Kodesh if the pasuk talks about Kodesh even the day that he was mechalal? Says Yomamim. What do you mean you can't find? Allah Malay, why not? Mashkachas lo, you can find how the achal umtze b'chankei umis that the person ate on Yom Kippur raw meat. He choked while he was eating the raw meat and he died. So. There wasn't even a shahus of the day for Zolam Mechapazim because while he was eating, he was dying. He died. And so it was like it happened at the same time. He didn't get a chance that there should be part of the day to forgive him.
He took the first bite already. He's like the Kodesh.
No, he's still eating. That in the grain sits by him and he's choking. Inami another teretz. He ate right before Yom Kippur goes out. So, that minute he ate and no more Yom Kippur. He didn't have even a minute.
He's alive.
Even though he's alive, but he ate so late in the day that while he was eating it, he started talking Yom Kippur, but when it went through to Shusir. What do you mean? He's being Mechal Yom Kippur. Exactly, but so we're going back now. We learned yeah. We learned by all of them are equal, meaning that the Kesar Mishtaleach forgives for all of them, side for Yisrael, for Kahanim, and Koyim Mashuach, if it's not the sin of Tamei b'Migdash u'Kadosh, that he was Tamei and he entered the Beis HaMikdash or he ate kosher. We're talking about any other Aveda that a person does. The Sar Mishtalech forgave for everyone equally. This in itself is a kasha. Katana, you learned in the Mishnah, they're all going to be forgiven equally. And then look right in the Mishnah. What's the difference between the Yisrael and the Kahanim and the Mashuach? What do you mean? We just said there's no difference. The Shavous it forgives on everybody equally. And a sentence later, and yes, what's the chilik? What do you mean, what's the chilik? There's no chilik. Rav Yehuda said this is how you have to learn. Only by other Avedas, chutz mitumas mikdash u'kedasha. There's no difference between a Yisrael, a Kohen, and Kohen HaMashuach. But where will there be the chiluk between a Yisrael and a Kohen Mashuach? By the kapara of Yom Kippur, it says Elashah Par. the par of the Kohen Gadol mechaper al kahanim al tumas mikdash u'kadosh v'chulu. On the tumas of mikdash u'kadosh is the par that forgives for the kahanim.
The part belongs is always
Only for the Kahanim, for the Israelim that did this grave sin of Tameh, being Tameh, entered the Beis Hamikdash or ate kachim that's Tameh, that for them the Soyam Shtalech forgives for them. So Yimanu Bani, who says this chilik that Benegay Tumas Mikdash v'Kadosh, that's where there's going to be a chilik if you between the Kahanim and the Israelim, that the Kahanim is the par, and by the Israelim it's going to be the Soyam Shtalech. Says, Gemara Rabbi Yehuda, you can only follow Rabbi Yehuda. Where do we see that? The Tanya, he says, we learned to finish in the Braisa. I'll just quote the pasuk. It says over there, the Chiper is referring to the Kohen Gadol, as Migdash HaKadosh, that's referring to Migdash and Kadoshim. V'soil HaMizbeach, HaMizbeach Yichaper, Al HaKahanim, HaKol Yichaper. Now he's going to go through each word and make Kadosha. The Chiper is Migdash HaKadosh. Migdash HaKadosh means that in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, he stayed there, right? And he was tummy. The person was tummy while being there. He became tummy while being there, and he took his time from leaving. So since he took his time, the time that it takes, the time that it takes for a person to book in zich, if he stayed that zman, that year, he's over on Tamei B'Mikdash. Is also referring to he was in a friend is right in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, yeah. Not in the Beis Hamikdash, no. That's the Kohanim, yeah. Yeah. The Heichel. Somebody, if a Kohen came in Tamei in the Heichel, he became Tamei in the Heichel. And he stayed there the time that it takes to bow. So then he's chayav for staying in the heichal while being tamei. Mizbeach k'mashmoyed, that means a kapara on while being tamei that happened because to the mizbeach hapnimi. While he was being tamei, while the kohen was tamei, he was marked there the keteiris on the mizbeach hapnimi while he was tamei. Yechaper elo hazoris. Yechaper is going a kapara on the avedis of tumah that happened to him in the hazara of the Beis Hamikdash. That he entered there, mean as a Adam Tamei, Kayanim Kimashmoi. To tell you the Havedus Yom HaKippurim forgives on the Havedus of the Kahanim. Amakol Elu Yisol, that the Havedus of the Yom is Mechaper on the Haveda even of Yisol. Yechaper Elu Avim, that the Havedus of the Yom of Kippurim is Mechaperes also for the Levim. Hushvu kulam lekaparachas. The Kahanim, Levim, Yisraelim are all in common that it's one kapara. Shemischapli b'sar mishtaleach b'shor avedas. That the b'sar mishtaleach forgives them by all the other avedas, except for tumas mikdash v'kadosh. Of Rabbi Yehuda, those are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. Shemenaima keshem shedam soya nas b'fnim b'chaper. Just like the dam hasoyer, that means the one that's Goyal Hashem, the one that they brought in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and they sprayed on the Mizbeach HaPnimi, forgives without vidui, al Yisol, al Tumas Mikdash v'Kadashov. It forgives on which sin, on a Yisol, and that he was tamei while he entered the Beis Hamikdash, or he's tamei while he ate kachim. Kach dam hapor. So too the dam hapor of the Kohen Gadol mechaper. It's mechaper without vidui, just like by this Goyal Hashem, the serve which is Goyal Hashem is without vidui. It forgives ala kahanim al tumas mikdash v'kadosho. Ukshem shevidui shel asor mishtaleich mechaper yisol b'shar abedes. And just like the vidui of the sorah mishtaleich,
You're supposed to say vidu when you do it.
yes, right, it's mechaper by other abedes with the azozel, yeah. There was no matnas dam. There's no, because you're throwing it down the mountain. So kach vidui shel par mechaper al kahanim b'shar abedes. So too the vidui in itself, the koyanim are not miskaper b'sar mishtaleich at all. They're forgiven with the par, but without vidui. That's how we learn one from the other. So you see that according to Rabbi Yehuda, only with the gate for the kapara of Tumas Mikdash v'Kadoshov, there's a chilik between the Kahanim and Yisraelim. But by Sha'or Averes, everyone is equal. The Sar Mishtalech forgives for everybody. In fact, the Gemara with Rabbi Shimon, Havadeh Hushvul. According to Rabbi Shimon, we know, how are you going to learn this? We know that the Torah compared it, like Rabbi Yehuda said, that they're all equal. So how are you going to compare it? My Hushvul. To what, Benegay, what would the Kahanim in common with the Yisraelim? So he says, what they have in common, the B'nai Kapara Nino, that all of them are miskaper on the Avedes, whether it's the Avedes of Tumas Mikdash V'Gedashov, whether it's the Shar Avedes, Miu Kol Chad V'Chap Mechaper B'Denafshe. But each one, the Kohen is miskaper with the Par, with its Kapara of Yom Kippurim, and the Yisraelim are forgiven on all the Avedes with the Sarah Mishtaleach. They both have different kabbanis, but it's all, they're in common that it's one kapara for all Avedes. From the Sarah Mishtaleach, just like the Par forgives on the Kahanim for all the Avedes, whether it's Tamei Mikdash V'Kadashov or Shar Avedes, so too for the Yisraelim, the Sarah Mishtaleach forgives on all the Avedes on Tamei Mikdash V'Kadashov and Shar Avedes. In fact, one of my time to Rabbi Shimon, what's the reasoning of Rabbi Shimon? Why doesn't he say that the Sarah Mishtaleach, why does he say Sarah Mishtaleach doesn't forgive by Shar Avedes on the Kahanim? Why not? So he says, from these, by the Sarah Pnimi, it says,
He said that we use that for the Par does that, no?
yeah, but we're asking, why shouldn't the Sarah Mishtaleach forgive it?
Well,
Why is he on the Par from only Tamei Mikdash V'Kadashov?
This one okay.
So he says, L'kach Hashnei Hasi'im. The pasuk included both Seirim together, and he compared them.
Yes, yes, yes.
Itkish Sarah Mishtaleach l'Sarah Anas B'Fnim. They compared the Sarah Mishtaleach to the Sarah Anas B'Fnim. Ma Sarah Anas B'Fnim Ein Mechaper Al Kahanim Al Tumas Mikdash V'Kadasha. Just like the Sarah that's done B'Fnim does not forgive for the Avedas of the Kahanim. It's only the Yisraelim, right? By Tumas Mikdash V'Kadasha, we know for a fact that this Sorry doesn't forgive for the Kahanim. It only forgives for the Kahanim, for the Yisraelim. The Sorry Apnimi by Mikdash V'Kedashah. The Chsibei, because by the Sorry Achatas it says, Sorry Achatas means the good of Hashem. It says Asher La'am. It says only, which is mashma only for the Yisraelim, not the Kahanim. Sorry Amishtalei, so too the Sorry Amishtalei. We're comparing the two. Ein Mechap Al Kahanim B'Shar Avedis. It's not going to forgive the other Avedis, just only for Yisraelim. So Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda. So how is Rabbi Yehuda going to answer this hakish? It's a beautiful hakish. It says Amalach lahachi iskish. What? Because Rabbi Yehuda says no. The Sorry Mishtaleach does forgive for the Kahanim by Shar Avedes. And he wants to learn. Rabbi Yehuda says no, you cannot forgive for the Kahanim because we're comparing the Sorry Mishtaleach to the Sorry Apnimi, and the Sorry Apnimi can only forgive for the Israelim. So if you're comparing the Sarah Mishtaleach, so the Sarah Mishtaleach can only also forgive for the Yisraelim and not for the Kahanim. So what's Rabbi Yehuda going to answer on that hakish? He says, Amalach lahachi iskish. He says, this is what the hakish is for. Sheyehei shavim b'mara. That they that they should have the same color, the same height, and same worth. Meaning the two sidim, you can't have one big black one and one midget white one, and you're going to make a goyel. What's a goyel? You have to have two black high ones to the same color, and they have to be worth the same money. No, I'm just giving you an example. It says tzeva, so I have to make two colors. Okay. So he says, who does? That's what he's come to tell you, the hakish. It says, who's the Tana of this following B'raisa? It says in the Torah, the gate, the Sorah Pnimi, it says, V'shachat esiyeh hachatas asher la'om. The Sorah hachatas should be only for the Yisrael. So she'ein hakahanim miskapim by the kahanim are not forgiven with that Sorah Pnimi. Ubameh miskapim, with what are the kahanim forgiven with? The parei shalane, with the par of Aaron. I would have thought even with the par of Aaron, the kahanim should not be forgiven. Sheikvanema behikav Aaron as parachatz asher loy. It says befedish loy, only for him, only for the kohen gadol, not for the kahanim. So me'ata eilam kapara. Now there's no kapara for them because kishoyme yichapa la kahanim matzinu for sure matzinu lahem kapara. There has to be a kapara. B'mei is kapara with what? It cannot be with the Sar because it says Asher La'am, only for the Israelim. He cannot be with the power of the Kohen Gadol because it says Asher Loi. The power that the Kohen Gadol is only for him. To the Gemara, so the Gemara answers, he says it makes sense, and it's better to say that they are forgiven with the power of Aaron. Because the power of Aaron wasn't exclusive for Aaron. Even though it says Shaloi, what's the lashon that he uses? Loi, Asher Loi. But you know it's Be'ad Ba'adoi U'Be'ad Beisoi. So the Loi is not only him; it includes his household. So if it includes his household, so then it can include all the Kohanim. Okay, 1 minute. But by the sorry hapnimi, it says Hashem, and there's no psicha to say it includes anything else. So therefore, the Kohanim cannot be forgiven with the sorry mishnaleach. And if you're going to want to ask even on the parashal arein, the Gemara will ask this question. Ba'ad beisa means only his wife, his household. So how are the Kohanim included? So he says, so you see, Beis Aaron Baruch Hashem is the whole shevet of the Kohanim. Zok the Gemara, Mantana, who's the one that learned the Braisa that says without the power the Kohanim don't have a kapara at all? You said if they don't have the power to rely on the Sorah Pnimi, it says Hashalom, there's no way they can be forgiven. Who's that? I mean, Rabbi Yehuda. Certainly not like Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda, if it follows Rabbi Yehuda, he says, by Shara Vedas, the Kohanim are forgiven together with the Israelim. Rav says, it's Rav Shimon. Shimon says, so that's why they need the power. Abaye says you can even say it follows Rabbi Yehuda. And this is how you have to. This is the kavanah of the Braisa. If you're going to say the power of Aaron is not mechap on the Kohanim, ein lahem kapara b'tumas mikdash v'kadasho. So they don't have a kapara by the tumah mikdash v'kadasho. Kishaima yechaper ala Kohanim. It says it's about Kohanim akol ama akol yechaper. How are they going to be forgiven? Says the Gemara when it says, and they compared in this Hekish. We said that the Salem to the Kohanim, they're all by all other Avedas. So Matzina Sheislam Kapara B'Shar Avedas. We find that they have a Kapara by other Avedas. They Kamei the Matzina Sheislam Kapara B'Shar Avedas. Just like we find that the Torah gave them a Kapara on other Avedas. Kach Yeshlam Kapara B'Tumas Mikdash V'Kadasho. So too they will be forgiven. Also on Mikdash V'Kadasho. From the Soyer. Once you said that the Soyer could forgive on Shar Avedes, so there was already a psicha for the Kohanim to be forgiven from the Soyer. So we're going to say he'll also forgive for the severe sin of Tamei Mikdash V'Kadasho. So as Gemara with what are they forgiven? It's better to say by the Tumah Mikdash V'Kadasho that they'll be forgiven with the power of Aaron. It says by why the power? Because there was an opening. Because it doesn't only forgive Shaloi, but forgives them for the Beis also. So we'll say it forgives for the Kohanim also. But by the Sorah Anas Mefnim, it says Hashalom. There's no heta. If you're going to have a question, what's going to be if you have a question on the par? What question would you have on the par that it shouldn't forgive for the Kohanim? The chitema basics, because you might want to say, it means only Aaron's house, the Kohen Gadol's household, not the regular Kohen. So he says, "Kulam kruyim beisay." All the Kohanim, the whole shevet of Kohanim are called beisay. Shenema beis Aaron baruch Hashem, yeah Hashem baruch Hashem. So it says befeidish in the pasuk that beis Aaron is referring to the whole shevet of Aaron.